Thank you, Eric Esele, for having extended the invitation. Thank you to me to be here today. But before I go to the topic on which I'm going to speak, permit me to share something that occurred or that happened yesterday. 3 times I heard the word achat. 3 times. Achat, for Hebrew speakers, that is a feminine, a form of one, to say one. Echad, that is one. So by the 3rd time that I heard this voice, I was worried. What does it mean? So I began to pray about that. By the end of Shabbat, which was past midnight, then I began to hear clearly something about Norway. That the spirit of a woman rules over Norway. In other words, mothers play a key role in Norway. And that Norway is like a mother to Europe. Norway is the spiritual womb of Europe. Norway must therefore stand for what is positive in Europe. And women must be united first. Hence, Achat. The oneness of women in Norway is critical to change course, to put Norway on the right path for the sake of the future generations here in Norway and Europe. And I do realize that the people of Norway have actually been a positive influence in Europe. Though I think today you are slowly morphing. In other words, you are changing from being a positive influence to just following whatever is going on in Europe. BDS, on which I'm going to speak, is from the pit of hell, and it is not the will of the Almighty that you boycott Israel. BDS, as I'll demonstrate, is anti-Semitic. It's the worst form of hatred. It's racist. Remember that the hatred against the Jewish people did not arise because of the rebirth of the modern state of Israel. Hatred against the Jewish people started before the rebirth of the modern state of Israel. And Semites have long declared, kill the Jews wherever you find them. You know this. Nazi Germany started with boycotting Jewish products or Jewish businesses. From there, it escalated into the Holocaust. All of you here in Europe, you know about these things I'm talking about. And today, because you choose to be on the side of the smallness of world politics, you just go according to fake news, which has taken center stage in the world. But I want to say this to you, that the act of financing terrorism, directly or indirectly, will one day have negative effects on Europe. You are shooting yourselves in the feet. A time will come, if you are not careful, if Europe is not careful, if you nest terrorism. In my language, we call it ukutengela amafina muchilonda. What does that mean? You see, when you have a solemn part and there's pus inside, unless you cut it to remove the pus, the pain will continue until probably whichever part, whichever limb rots. So what you are doing by being ambassadors or indirectly supporters of terrorism, terrorist groups, you are nursing what must be faced squarely or head-on. And a time will come when all these groups will be entrenched, if you are not careful as Europe, that you will become refugees, and Africa will be receiving you as refugees if you are not careful. Because these people are so systematic, you must understand this. So well organized. And all they want is to promote an agenda of hatred. That's why I'm here today to challenge you. That time has come to do the right things. And you as women of Noah, I'm speaking to women especially, because I heard you must be united in supporting that which you put your country on the right course. And the right thing to do is support the PDK. Time has come to be, spiritual, to move in accordance with the times and seasons. It's not a matter of voting, traditionally, the way we've been voting for years, the way your ancestors voted, that's the way you must vote today. You must walk with the eyes of the Spirit. Today is Yom Yerushalayim. And this week is very important in the spiritual life of Israel. Because in the next, on 6th of Sivan, it will be Shavuot, which is very important in the Jewish life. For Shavuot is known for what is called Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai. It's also called the season of harvest, wheat harvest. In Greek, it's called Pentecost, which I believe is also important to you as the people of Norway. Now, when you pick the word Yerushalayim, and you pick the root words there, the Shin, the Lamed, and the Mem, you would find that Yerushalayim means Shalem, that is peace. And as its original name, which is Yerushalem, indicates Jerusalem is the center of peace. And unless Jerusalem is stable, the entire universe will never be stable. I want you to know this. The Jewish people are reading the Pasha called Pasha Bamidbar, which simply means in the desert. Why did the Almighty choose the desert to be a place to give the Torah, to give the word, and to call Israel to perform his will? This is a very important question. Had it not been for time, I would have gone into details. Now, when we are talking about peace, the United Nations is seeking peace. The nations of the world are seeking peace. Families are seeking peace. Individuals are seeking peace. Yerushalayim is the city of Hashem, the city of peace, and the city of David, as all of us know. But then why is it that this peace has eluded us for so many years? More than 50 times, Yerushalayim has been vanquished or taken over or one or the other, troubled by the nations. Why has the troubling of Yerushalayim been part of the life in Israel? This is a very important question that we need to ask ourselves. To answer this question, for you to understand that we need a peaceful Yerushalayim, a peaceful Israel, to have a peaceful world, I decided to take a biblical text from 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 28 to 29. In the words of King Solomon, when he was dedicating the temple, he said, and I quote, "That thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day." That's the temple, by the way. "Even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place." This simply means that Jerusalem is the spiritual gate to heaven, and all of us who are here in Norway and other nations must support Jerusalem, must support Israel. The reason is that we have been given this world to make it a better place, not just for ourselves, but also for future generations. This is the destiny of man. There are many Christians today who want to become so spiritual that they become earthly irrelevant. They are talking about a spiritual Jerusalem. They are talking about a Jerusalem in heaven. Let the current Jerusalem suffer, we have a Jerusalem in heaven. The Bible says heaven is the throne of God, and he has given this earth to you and I to dominate it. Our mission is on earth. One purpose, one will, united as one. During the reign of Solomon, there was world peace. This is the only time of recorded history that there was peace, the moment that one united Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, with King Solomon reigning, that there was peace. There were no wars at all during the reign of King Solomon, as all of us know. And this is the eternal capital. Now, according to the UN, they described Jerusalem as the international city. That's how they described it in 1947 when they looked at the partition plan, an international city. Now, I'm talking about Jerusalem because this is the epicenter of end-time politics. And this takes me to the second point, that Africa and the Middle East are the epicenter of end-time leadership. And this is very important. Isaiah, prophet Isaiah, from that's chapter 19, 23 to 25, is very clear about this. It talks about Assyria, Egypt, and Israel. It is the will of Hashem that the Arab world, together with Israel, and Africa, in this case, I'm talking about Egypt. When the Bible talks about Egypt and Kush or Ethiopia, it's talking about these important places, Africa through to the Middle East, to stand together, united as one, and to let the highway of holiness spring out of Egypt through to Assyria and Jerusalem, with Jerusalem as the center of world peace, as a center to influence what is positive in these end times. Africa and Israel share a common ancestry. We share a common history of slavery, colonialism, and all forms of discrimination. I therefore fail to understand sometimes when some of the African nations decide to stand against Israel. Israel has proved time and again that through resilience, ingenuity, a nation which is despised or looked down upon can stand and offer solutions to the world. China is not Africa's messiah. I come from a country, Zambia, whose GDP is $20 billion. Zambia's debt is close to our GDP. Now, that $20 billion is far more when you compare it with the GDP of Israel. And yet Zambia is 39 times bigger than Israel. We have water, we have arable land, we have mineral resources in Zambia. But why is it that we are failing to create wealth using all these abundant resources that the Almighty has given us? The reason is that we are choosing wrong partnerships and we are lacking the understanding of what ought to be done. Doing good is the commandment of the Almighty, and making this world a better place for all to live in. And we can learn this from Israel. Therefore, Israel is the solution to so many problems that many African nations are facing. I also want to submit that when it comes to Israel, it's a mitzvah or a commandment to do good. BDS, on account that Israel is an apartheid state, is absolute nonsense. Why am I saying so? If you understand what apartheid means, you didn't describe the state of Israel to be one nation which is an apartheid state. Apartheid is simply a system where rulership or governorship is based on color. Different people ruled according to different systems. This also happened in Zambia and many African countries during colonialism. When there was Calabar, Africans were buying things through small windows. It was only Europeans who were allowed to enter the stores to buy. And I'm speaking as a descendant of a freedom fighter, my paternal grandmother, who stood up at the time that it was customary for women to be restricted to the kitchen. She stood up, and she's renowned today. We go to museums, you find her story. She stood up to be first among the women, to provide leadership. She stood against Sir Ian MacLeod when he came shortly before our country gained independence. This is what we call apartheid. When you go to Israel today, you find that in many, many places, Arabs are working in corporations that are owned by industries. They are living together as one. So when you're talking about apartheid, it is something that is very difficult to understand. Israel desires peace, and this is her destiny. All the actions of Israel, when it comes to security, are defensive. Before Operation Cast the Lead, for instance, in 2008, more than 8,000 custom rockets were fired onto Israel. Can Norway allow any neighboring country to fire just one rocket and you look away? Just one rocket. Within minutes, you see all kinds of jets have been flying to go and destroy the source of those rockets, or that rocket, if it's one. But Israel continues to take all these kinds of rockets and all kinds of attacks. All actions, as I've said, are defensive. The hatred, therefore, against the Jews, as I've said, is something that must not be entertained. The Holocaust is the crime that should never have happened at all. To understand this, some of you, I think you must take time to go to Poland. You have to go and visit those death camps. The crime that the 6 million Jews committed was simply because they were Jews. That's the crime that they committed. And as I said earlier, it started with boycotting. Therefore, BDS is a reminiscent of what happened under the Nazis. And even as the Jewish people have vowed never again, those who are working in accordance with the times and seasons, they too vow never again should such a thing happen. When you go to a town called Kielce in Poland, one morning, 44 Jewish children were murdered by the Nazis. 44 children, some 3 months, 4 months. What did those children, what wrong did they commit? The crime, as I've said, is because they were Jewish. Immediately after the liberation of the Jews, the remnants who survived in the Holocaust, about 46 Jews went to settle in the same town called Kielce. This was within 4 years. The killing of those children I'm talking about happened in 1942. One morning, a Polish boy went missing. The village, with the help of the entire town, that Kielce, with the people, with the police of Poland, they went and murdered all the 46 Jews who had just rebelted from the camps. They died. They were killed. All of them, not one survived. 3 days later, the boy went missing, came back, wherever he had gone without telling the parents. The Jews were gone, never ever to come back. The only crime was that they were Jewish. From the concentration camps or death camps of Lublin, you go to Auschwitz, the ashes of the 6 million Jews who perished, still they cry out for vengeance and liberation, as this world wants to continue to promote a kind of hatred which is so cheap, which is based on total lies that are spreading at the hands of fake news. You are looking out. Heaps of ashes. Never ever. Yes, we know we have a genocide. Go to Rwanda. Rohingya, Muslims. But when we are talking about the Holocaust, never in the history of humanity has there been such a system which is so systematic, sending them to gas chambers just because they were Jewish people. And this has nothing to do with the state of Israel. So it is from this standpoint that we must view BDS and anti-Semitism. And blind Christians are busy criticizing Israel. You are becoming spokespersons of terror groups. Norway has a role to play, as I've said. Why should Norway fund organizations that you know are connected to terror groups? And terror groups work as one. Israel stands for good. Israel stands for a positive life force. There's so much that the world has learned from the Jewish people. Legal systems, civilization, technology, and as all of you know, that 20% of the global budget on ICTs is Israel's. You are boycotting Israel, you are coming out with phones and so forth. What kind of boycott is that? Boycott phones, boycott everything, therefore. And I can assure you that in one way or the other, the Almighty has a way of securing the future of Israel. The kashrut industry is a $5 billion industry. Now, all these things that I'm talking about, they are for good. Now, for those of you, those nations that are supporting directly or indirectly these terror groups, I have 10 seconds. Terror groups. I want to say this to you, that for a country like Norway, it means that you are supporting the killing of Christians. Look at the killing of Christians in Nigeria by Boko Haram. Sudan, I think Netanyahu spoke about that. And many other African countries, Kenya, too numerous, but only a few to mention. And whenever attacks occur against Israel, everyone looks away. And whenever in defending herself, Israel attacks, or Israel, shall I say, acts on terror against terror, everyone rises to condemn Israel. Now let me end my address today by saying that whether the UN likes it or not, Israel shall live. Israel is a nation that lives. This is a mystery. Israel high. The Byzantine took over from 313 to 636. Israel lives today. Israel high. The Arab took root from the year 638 to 1099. The nation of Israel lives today. Israel high. The Crusaders, the same land, the same territory, went and took over from the year 1099 to the year 1291. The nation of Israel still lives, and it is here today. The Mamluk ruled from 1291 to 1516. Israel high. The nation of Israel lives today. The Ottoman rule from 1517 to 1917. The nation of Israel still lives today. The British rule from 1918 to 1948. The nation of Israel still lives today. Why? Because the God of Israel still lives. The thrones of judgment are set in Jerusalem. Standing against Israel is poking your little finger into the eyes of God, and no one can poke his little finger into the eyes of God and expect to live. Israel high, order vino high. Thank you.